Hello everyone, welcome back to another top 10 video. We are continuing the Redux series, going through each combination of colors, giving you my top 10 for the best cards in the Abzan colors. So Abzan, if you're not familiar, that is white, black, and green. So far, as I've been doing these videos, it is the smallest, the tiniest pool of cards to do a top 10 in. I think there's only something around 30 cards, but there are some pretty good ones. There's enough to do a top 10. So number 10 here, let's start it off here with Dune Blast. Dune Blast is a pretty boring card, but if it's what you want, if you need some more removal, or if you're playing a kind of deck where you can get away with playing one creature and one creature's all you need, Dune Blast is then far from a bad card to play. 7 mana board wipe, you pretty much protect your one creature and then destroy the rest. And that's pretty much it. And then number 9, we have Cathril Aspect Warper. Really fun commander, really interesting concept, and we've seen this tried before. Maybe hasn't always worked out in Commander, but I think Cathril kind of gives you the very best opportunity to play it, where you get to kind of have a keyword tribal deck, where it's not so much about creature types as usual tribal decks tend to be. This time around, it's about getting the best possible keywords, because there's a counter for each keyword pretty much. Cathril can have all those keywords, and your whole deck is just going to be kind of a mix between Reanimator and just playing good quality creatures with those keywords. Not super powerful, but if you're looking for something out there, something that's fun, maybe not as explored as often in the average play group, this will definitely give you something to talk about. And then number 8, we have Anafenza the Foremost. Another pretty simple card. Anafenza does something that is just incredibly powerful. In a 4-player game where there's likely a lot of graveyard decks, if you can stop an opponent from getting their death triggers, you can often just shut them out of the game. And while I don't think Anafenza makes the best commander option, I think if you can get her out there, there are several decks where you can just keep bringing her back. This doesn't affect your creatures when they die, so it's very one-sided. Maybe not the most oppressive thing. I mean, it's not quite land destruction or Winter Orb or anything like that, but denying someone the ability to get their triggers to pretty much benefit from the one thing their deck might be doing, it's pretty devastating. Number 7, we have Tayam Luminous Enigma. Get another one from Commander 2020, and Tayam is actually pretty good. Kind of the whole goal is to play cards CMC 3 or less. That could be anything, since Tayam just focuses on permanents. You get vigilance counters pretty much on all of your creatures as they enter, which is nice because the ability requires you to remove counters to then get those permanent cards back. So if you're looking for something new, if you're looking for something a little bit different, but you still like the comfort zone of playing a Reanimator strategy, I think Tayam could be a good commander option for you. And then number 6, we have Kulfanar the Last U. Kulfanar is a newer commander card from Commander Legends, and while it's not necessarily the best Reanimator strategy in these colors, you could do a lot worse. It's essentially like a scrap trawler. You kind of have a way to constantly bring back creatures to your hand, keeps your hand full, allows you to keep a board presence. The ability might trick you into thinking it has to be a lot like Doran the Siege Tower, where you need a lot of big tree folk, you need a lot of big toughness creatures. You don't need a lot of big toughness creatures, and you can still make this strategy pretty powerful. And then number 5, we have Doran the Siege Tower. Probably the weirdest commander, one of the weirdest that you can build a deck around, and it might not seem like it now, but for the longest time, having a whole deck where you just change the rules about toughness, how creatures deal damage, it was just such a cool thing, and while it's not necessarily the most powerful thing on this list, part of what makes Commander is just the creativity, the idea of building a singleton deck around something that's odd, something that's fun. Being a card that existed before pretty much all of the Commander product cards, you really have one of the first examples of just a fun commander to build a deck around. Still going to be fun, still going to be easy to make a deck around. There's never going to be a shortage of high toughness creatures, we seem to always get those. So yes, definitely a fun, classic commander. Number 4, we have Eerie Ultimatum. Now, one of the best things about Ikoria is that it brought back the ultimatum spells, so you got 5 more ultimatums this time. And Eerie Ultimatum is fantastic because it's exactly what you want for a singleton deck. Every card in your graveyard, with the exception of non-basic lands, should almost always have different names. So you pay 7 mana and you get all those cards back. That's pretty ridiculous. It's one-sided, so it can help you go off and prevent your opponents from benefiting from anything like a living death. Really cool card, and ultimatums should be powerful. I mean, you're paying all of that colored mana, very specific mana cost. You should get something for doing that. And then number 3, we have Nethroi Apex of Death. This is just such a cool commander option. It's a cool creature all around. The mutate ability was kind of weird. Ikoria was a little bit all over the place, but this mutate trigger is so good. With Eerie Ultimatum, you could of course bring back several permanents from your graveyard. Nethroi has a mutate trigger. When it mutates, you return any number of target creatures with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you played in a lot of these Abzan Reanimator decks, you'll know how pretty easy it already is to get back the same creatures over and over again. You'll have Sun Titan loops with Safi Eric's daughter, stuff like that. Nethroi, if you keep playing it, you get all those creatures back. Really can help set you up for an easy win. And then number 2, we have another classic. We have Gave, Guru of Spores. Gave, Guru of Spores is kind of a commander that has aged, no doubt about it. I think as soon as Commander 2013 came out, you knew you had to get more value when you cast your commander for the second or third time. Getting only the same 5 counters on Gave can be kind of a letdown, but he's still pretty powerful. You can still combo in several ways. I mean, there's only been more and more support for tokens and +1/+1 counter strategies. So you have a commander that's about 10 years old now. So you have a ton of doubling season cards. You have the new Vorinclex. There's just a ton of ways that you can take advantage of Gave, and that's never going to end. We're always going to have the +1/+1 counter support. We're always going to have the token support. We might even get more Sapperling support, or even more Fungus Tribal support. So, really good commander. Has aged poorly in some aspects, but has aged really well in some other ones. Now, before we go on to number 1, we do have some honorable mentions. Abzan Charm is not a bad charm, it's far from the worst charm, but it's not really a charm you see anybody play. And then we have Kethis, the Hidden Hand. Kethis is actually a pretty good commander. I've always been kind of iffy about having to exile cards from your graveyard, but I do have a friend who plays a Kethis deck, and it's pretty dominant. It also really helps to supplement a strategy if what you have is a lot of legendary cards. Alright, so number 1. Reanimator's pretty powerful, and we have one of the best commanders in Carador, Ghost Chieftain. Maybe not as efficient as something like Marin, but there are ways that you can keep getting Carador out there. You get good cost reduction. You don't have to wait for an end step trigger. You can just cast your creature. You get 3 colors to work with, and as I showed you with Nethroi Apex of Death, Kulfanar the Last Hue, and I guess even Tayam Luminous Enigma, you have plenty of graveyard reanimation in these colors, and each individual color tends to do pretty well with the graveyard. Carador has been for a long time one of the more dominant commanders. Kinda like Gave, he's aged in some ways, and has aged really well in others. Reanimator is always going to do well in Commander. I think it's one of the more popular strategies next to Landfall. I mean, what's not to like about that strategy? You get your board presence back. The whole deck is essentially just about recovery, so it's very durable. You don't really have to worry about where you're going to be mid to late game. You know you're going to be putting up a fight. But anyway, let me know what you think about the top 10 best Abzan cards in the Commander format. I'm kind of neutral about Abzan colors. I don't really play them that much, but when I did, I always remembered them being pretty powerful. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next time.